It is called Monster Hike, a 100-mile inquiry into the Sasquatch mystery. He's traveled on the very famous Lone Star Hiking Trail. Please welcome Mr. Avrel.
I want to say thanks to Russell and Michelle and to Daniel for helping throw together this deck at the last minute, and I appreciate the invitation to speak. And the first thing you're probably wondering is how the guy that took a minute and a half to get on the stage walked 100 miles 2 years ago. And the answer is that I had a stroke and an emergency brain surgery in January of this year. So I'm getting back into the swing of things slowly but surely. And got my good buddy Wade here, who's part of this first story that I'm going to tell. The very first time I was ever in this park, Double Lake, was 7 years ago, really about last week, September of 2011. And Russell, I guess, was just talking about this phenomenon, but I'd come to do a backcountry trip, camping trip with my oldest son, who was then in 4th grade, just started 4th grade. And we had intended to just, we're going to park here and then walk into the Lone Star Trail and walk off the trail and do a backcountry camp over there. We haven't done that before. We just wanted to try it. And we've been finding Bigfoot had been on the air for about a year at that point. And so we've been talking about it a little bit, and I showed him some other videos that I'd seen. And so he was aware of my interest in the Bigfoot phenomenon. And we got out of the truck, we were putting on bug spray, getting our backpacks ready to go. The sun had set already. It had taken us longer to get over here from Austin than we thought it was going to. So the sun was down, and it was already getting dark, but we were just going to say, well, we'll just go walk in as far as we can. And we were out of the truck for less than 3 minutes. And we were, back then, that was a drought of record in that year. And these lakes were dry. These were dry lake beds out here to my left. But we heard it from this direction. I don't know, it could have been a quarter of a mile, half a mile to our east. And I looked at my son, he looked at me, eyebrows raised up. And the park post at that time was there, and he was kind of trying to figure out if he could let us go on the trail or not. He was phoning his supervisor and figuring out is there a ban on backcountry hiking or not. And I asked him, I didn't read him on, I just said, what do you think that was? He said, I don't know, probably it was a coyote. I looked at my son and looked at me. Yeah, he heard it too. But probably a coyote. And I've heard a lot of coyotes that are growing up in Texas. And that wasn't one of them. So a couple of years go by, about, I guess 4 years go by, and my friend Wade here and I came out here came onto the Lone Star Trail at the Richards Trailhead, which is the western terminus of the trail. So if you're hiking mile 1 of the Lone Star Trail, you're hiking in at Richards, and you're coming up that way. We came in, this was right before I went back to work after New Year's. And we camped at this pond that's about 2.5 miles in on the Lone Star Trail. And this was January 4th of 2016. And we went in and we actually weren't supposed to do this because it was deer season, but we didn't know any better at the time. So we came around this pond and went, 100 yards past it into the forest and pitched our hammocks at that point. And made dinner, went to bed, and it was about 6 in the morning, and it was about 35 degrees, I think. So quite cold, but not freezing. But it was one of those winter mornings that was just perfectly still. Just nothing moving in the forest. No birds, no insects of any kind because it's cold. No wind, no breeze of any kind. And right on the other side of Wade, where he was hanging in his hammock, I hear this. And then less than a second later, about, I would say a quarter of a mile away, I hear a double knock. That to me was very clearly a call and response. So I hear this kind of a hollow, different tone and much farther away. So, and this is again about 6 a.m. and it's pitch black still. Sun we're not to first light yet. Wade never heard it. He was awake at the time, but he was down in his sleeping bag because it was so cold. And he had his knit hat on, whatever. So he was kind of tucked down, but I froze there and I waited because I wanted to hear, I wanted to hear footfalls away from the site. To me, it was very clear that there were two of them that were communicating. One was just to our west, and one was farther to the west. But what's interesting about the story, and why I'm drilling down on it a little bit, is that about 6 months later, I was surfing around online, and I found a report from Sam Houston National Forest for the morning of January 4th, 2016, at 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's at the exact same time, there was a husband and a wife who were driving east over Baker's Bridge. That's 1375. You all came over that. If you came from the west, anywhere in the west, you came over that bridge to get here. And it was a husband and wife. They were both working early shifts. One of them left at 5 in the morning, came over the bridge, west to east, came over Lake Conroe, and saw this figure out on the bridge. And at first they thought it was a jogger, and they got closer and closer, and it was this hairy thing, and it was 8 feet tall. And actually had to pull around it in the passing lane to get past this thing. And an hour later, the husband is driving the same route from Bryan to Conroe. Coming across the bridge, same thing. Sees this huge hairy thing from the back, and kind of pulls around it too. And so what the reason I'm dwelling on this is now we've got a situation where I have heard two of them to my west, and a separate, completely independent witness who I've never met or talked to is filing a report at the exact same time about a sighting, a Class A sighting of one 9 miles to our east. So now we've got 3 of them fixed in time and in place at the same time. And I'm just not aware of a lot of other research that's able to make that claim. So I found that very interesting. And this is I think on Google Maps now it's called the Lone Star Trail Pond.
Is that called Kelly Pond?
No, this is not Kelly Pond. This is much smaller than Kelly Pond. And it's right on the Lone Star Trail. Kelly Pond is a little bit off the Lone Star Trail. Anyway, I got this bee in my bonnet that I wanted to walk the whole trail at some point, and I was just about to turn 50, and I kind of wanted to use that as a milestone thing. You know, some people run marathons, some people skydive, and they hit these landmark birthdays, and I thought, well, this is something that's kind of audacious. You know, to walk 100 miles that's something. You know, it's not climbing Mount Everest, but it's something that I could set a goal for, and I could actually do. And so, as October approached, I started getting ready for the hike. This is mine. This is a picture I took the night before I left of our front room, and it's all those plastic bags are at the top were food that I planned to eat on the way, and I was going to cache these bags. I was going to bury them along the way at highway crossings. And so the last bag I was going to pick up was I buried here at Clover Lake. So right where you cross 2025 on the Lone Star Trail, I had buried this bag of food. And that was going to be the last one. And then I backtracked the whole way and planted 4 more bags along the way. One in Stubblefield Lake, one in Huntsville, and on I-45, and so forth. And so I had this whole elaborate scheme worked out where I was going to crackers and spam and jerky and all the things that I planned to eat along the way. Because the plan was that I was going to through hike the entire thing. And that's me at the trailhead number 1. So that's where the trail starts. And that's called the Richards trailhead. And so start with the wilderness section of the Lone Star Trail. And it's about a 40-pound pack, and these are my homemade bamboo walking sticks that I had on the way. And this is kind of my setup, and this is the same hammock as I just took down this morning. So two tarps, one kind of ground cloth, one above, and then just a hammock, a Hennessy hammock with a bug net. That was mine. And I've thrown a couple of other pictures in here of interesting things I saw along the way that you don't see every day, that are nonetheless not Bigfoots. That was in the Big Woods section, which is I think the sixth section of the trail. It's a marble orb weaver, about the size of a quarter. But I was looking down. I just come upon a snake earlier that day, and so I was still focused on the ground and not step on a snake. And I looked up, and this thing was about this far from my face, so I snapped a picture. But that's the thing about this trail. You can tell how many people have been on the trail that day if there are cobwebs going across the trail. And there were a lot of days where it was 3 in the afternoon and I was still hitting cobwebs, and nobody had been on the trail that day. Just to kind of highlight how isolated it is as far as. There's an American tree frog sitting on a palmetto. And one thing you'll notice about this forest is that 100 feet in elevation can make a big difference in the ecology of it. If you go down 100 feet, you're hitting Central Florida, stuff like this. This is palmettos, dwarf palmettos, and fruit trees, exotic Asian invasives, trifoliate oranges, orange trees, that kind of thing. If you go up on top of the hill, you gain 75 or 100 feet, and now you're in pines and sandy, and it's much drier, and that's where the pines take over. So as you rise and fall, these gentle changes in altitude make a big difference in the kind of vegetation that you're seeing. And of course, there was a lot of reports of Sasquatches feeding on palmetto hearts of palmetto, starchy hearts of them. And that's why, my theory, that's why you get so many reports of skunk apes in Florida, because you look at the video, and there were always these palmettos always in the foreground of those videos, especially in Florida. Now, along about mile 19 of the trail, I started seeing these. And this is not a great print by any means, and this would not convince anybody who doesn't already believe in Bigfoot. But I started seeing them pretty distinctive, what to me looked like barefoot prints, B-A-R-E prints. And I call it, in the book, I call them triangles, because they kind of have this wide top and something that you could imagine being a heel and bottom. And I would see them going both ways with the trail, and I could see them going against me, toward me. I could see them going across the trail, interestingly. And they did, to me, I tended to associate these with maybe female adults, or maybe large juveniles. So that was a great presentation before me about tree structures and tree bends, and I did see a lot of them. This is an example of a yopine tree bend, and of course you'll see a lot of this in the forest, and it's not all bends. What happens is that I looked up, I kind of investigated this area, and I could see just by looking around what was happening, which was that the pine needles would fall on these yopines, and it would rain. And they'd become these wet mats, and they would be like snow load. If you've been in snow country before, the trees will get pulled over like this. But occasionally you'll find one that looks to be pinned in a way, which would not happen in nature, would not happen in normal circumstances. Okay, the snow, the rain, maybe these mats of pine needles might wave these trees over, but then you'll see a dead log lying on that's much older than this live tree. lying on top of it, pinning it down. And so, again, you know, there are naturalistic explanations, but then there are things that throw a nuclear into it. Yeah.
Did you know in 1992 or 91, Houston Zoo dropped off 7 Chinese monkeys on 945?
Dropped off what?
Monkeys.
Monkeys?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's
Why?
one thing. They was overpopulated in the Houston Zoo, and they dropped off 7 of them in 91. I've seen it one time across 945.
Chimpanzees? I never heard that. Very.
What organizations did that?
Houston Zoo.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe. They do.
The zoo.
I promise you. I tell you, I've seen them on and that was on the news before they even the kitchen to drop them off out in National Forest.
I'd love to see if there's a clip of that or something. A news clip of that. I'd love to read it. Yes, sir.
There'd be a ton of people.
Ernie
Ernie and I was in this area not too long ago. We found some tree pins like this that are obviously pinned on these top ends. But what we also found, and it took us a while to kind of discover, was on the base, there was a dead log also leaned up against it.
Yeah.
We found several in the road like that.
I found the exact same thing.
Yeah,
It was a log that had been dead. Not only was it dead, but there was no root system to it. It had been moved.
Yeah.
Clearly been moved, and it had been dead at least 5 years. And so, yeah, that's exactly what I was seeing out here. This is kind of a scary picture. This is the halfway mark. So the trail is really 96 miles and change, and so this is my halfway mark. When I got to mile 67, I kind of tuned my eye to looking for these triangles, and I came across this print, which was pretty extraordinary, and you can't see it very good in this light, but I actually made it the cover of my book. I did a global change in the contrast of it, and this is less than 100 yards from a parking lot. And it's the parking lot that starts the Magnolia section of the trail. It's less than 10 miles from where we're standing now. And it's, let's say it's about 50 yards in from the trailhead parking lot, Butch Archer Road and 945. Butch Archer Road, 945, right here in the Old Spring. I put a tape measure on it the next morning. I'll go back to this in a second. I put a tape measure on it.
The center has been.
Sorry?
The center's got it.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. This is the next day, so you can see it's deteriorated quite a bit. But it's 18 inches from, there's the heel right there, there's the big toe right here. And you can see clearly the impression of toes, 1, 2, and then trailing on down, they get less defined. But down here, I wear a size men's 10.5. This is the exact same shoe that I'm wearing now that's in that photo.
Is this the print that you had reported to BFRO?
I have not reported this BFRO.
This particular one?
No. I've never reported the print. I didn't file a report about anything on this hike. I did file a report about the incident that Wade and I were at in January of 2016. But I never filed anything else. Other people have filed with BFRO about prints and samples, but I have not.
Okay.
Did you ever see like exact lines?
You know, I looked. I did. Of course, I did look for one, and it was a very weird area. I'll say that it was what I call a Yukon monoculture, and the whole thing was just thick, just impenetrable woods. There was this print. It was almost like this creature stepped on the trail. It was coming across it maybe diagonally. Stepped once on the trail and then off with the other foot. I could never find a trackway. I did look.
So that is across the trail, or is that
That's
in line?
that's in line with the trail, back toward the parking lot. So as I came across it, I came across it upside down. And I said, that's pretty good. And it didn't really strike me in the moment as something really significant, you know, but as I kind of slept on it and kind of looked at it later, and then I started playing with the contrast a little bit, and I was like, yeah, that's something. that's more than just my imagination playing tricks on me. And then the next morning, I went back with the tape measure, and I measured 18 inches. So, you know, most likely a male. In the book, I call this the Magnolia alpha male. For the reason that I kind of associate those other prints I had with females because they were just a little bit barefoot. They were a little bit longer than my shoe. And one thing I failed to mention earlier is that I saw a lot of small prints, exact same shape, but about half the length of my foot. Everywhere I saw these the ones I'll call the adult female prints, I would see the small ones, the small triangles. And so naturally my theory immediately became these are young ones with a mother, right? In keeping with primate behavior. That's what you would expect. And that's why I was saying in the last presentation, probably an adult females with the voice we were hearing, calling off the kids and knock it off. Get back to
Enough's enough, man.
And so this was very striking, not only in the size of it being so much bigger than my foot, really twice as long as my foot. My foot, this was 9 inches wide and 18 inches long, and that's another thing, that's another common, those are common proportions in Bigfoot prints, this 2 to 1. Whereas our feet are essentially 3 to 1, 3 times as long as they are wide. Bigfoot prints are typically 2 to 1. So 18 inches long, 9 inches wide. So it was almost as wide as my foot is long. But that makes sense when you think about the kind of weight that they would be carrying for an animal. And not only does it make sense that it would be wider for an animal that has this huge, stocky body plan, but there are a lot of other things about the prints that make sense too. Like they're almost always flat-footed, whereas we have a ball and arch in our foot. Typical Bigfoot prints will not have. You will not see that signature human-shaped footprint. You'll see a print like we see here. See that? See how it's compressed from here all the way over. For a human print, more than likely, you see the ball here. It would cut in here. That'd be the arch. And it would come back out to the heel. You don't see that. You see that full width. So flat-footed, check that box. 2 to 1, you can check that box. And then I didn't find a track weight, but the other thing about prints is that they're usually in line. You all know this. It's like they're walking on a tightrope. And that makes sense too when you consider a bipedal animal that's carrying 700, 800, 900 pounds. That their feet would more likely be in the middle of their center of gravity than we would be. We're alternating left and right because we're light enough to get away with that. They're not light enough to get away with that, so they're keeping that base of support right in the middle all the time. I threw this down as a knotted double leg. This is here a double leg, and I had buried this huge can of SpaghettiOs at the double leg because I didn't want to set myself up to carry too much weight, so this was kind of a reward for me making it to the last cache of food. This is my SpaghettiOs. This is a magnolia tree bend. This is just south of here, maybe 3 miles, maybe an hour and a half south of here on the trail. And just odd. This, it's not unheard of, and for this to happen in nature, you see, trees falling over bending all the time. But it's had an odd look to me. It wasn't a yopine. These magnolias can be 70, 80 feet tall in this area, south of, west of here in the magnolia section, and south of here in the Big Creek section. They're quite large and quite strong, and so that caught my eye. This is kind of this is not a real convincing TP structure. There was a better one that I'm sorry I don't have a copy of today. And Daniel was helping me put this together. But this is the kind of thing that kind of just stops you in your tracks a little bit and said, well, why does this tree fall this way and the other tree fall that way, and you're falling against the tree? So here you've got sort of a tripod shaping up. Again, this is not the best example of one. The best example was in about mile 76 in the Big Creek section, and it was a tripod about this tall, and it was in a real weird area. It was in the Big Creek scenic area, what they call the birding area, and it caught my eye. It was about 40 feet off the trail, I guess, and everything around it was real boggy and torn up. Not like hog damage, like you would see, hogs rooting, but it was like something had trudged through there over and over and over again, and just churned all the mud and stuff. But I couldn't make out prints. I couldn't make out footprints in that area. But it was 3 or 4 branches that were all uniform height and all coming together at a single point, and looked very much like some of the things we were seeing in the last presentation. And that picture is in the book if you want to take a look at it. I think that was it. Happy to, I was given a half hour, so I've probably gone over already, but I'm happy to take any questions. Take any questions you might have about the trail. It was a great hike. It was scary. I wound up just as a caveat, I wound up not through hiking the whole thing because I got so scared on night 1. I was solo camping. I mean, I was solo hiking the entire thing. And, you can read the book and get all the gory details about night 1 and the weirdness that was going on. But the bottom line was that I came off the trail. I spent night 1 in a hunter camp by myself. Night 2 was at Stubblefield Lake, which is a developed campground a lot like this one. And then I came off the trail and was staying in Montgomery at an Airbnb with my brother for 4 nights, and I spent the last night out here in the Bayou section. The last night of the hike, I spent it out here. And I recorded also. I got some strange recordings that I don't have with me. But anyway, happy to answer any questions. I did not have a sighting. I was hoping I might get lucky this weekend, but okay, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Abel,
Yeah.
he has a question.
Ron?
Yeah, so, I've noticed this, like, as a long-distance hiker myself, you're going through a variety of different habitats. And I feel like from what I've learned in the last couple of days in the big thicket, both the preserve and the greater Boothville in East Texas, like, I know that you're going in and out of various different environments. In fact, they boast that they've got 9 different environments in East Texas big thicket. From cypress sloughs to southern forest, deciduous forest, the western pine, and all these different types of habitats. So we were talking about a lot of the Florida species like the palmettos and different types of tree frogs and stuff that have kind of eased over into this part of Texas as you get to those lower elevations. Did you ever feel at any point that maybe you were looking at different tracks of 2 different subspecies or different species of primate, like maybe a skunk ape or a swamp ape from
I think
wetlands?
there were really 3 types of tracks I found. They were all basically the same shape. The last one, which I call the alpha male print, is just the clearest and the largest of them, but the others were not clear enough to, like I say, to convince anybody else. And look, to me, my believing theory still is that those were females and juveniles that I was seeing. Another interesting point is that I stopped seeing those. So I-45 runs right through Sam Houston, right there. It bisects the forest. About 2/3 of the forest are on the east side. About 1/3 of it is on the west side. And one thing I did notice is that I stopped seeing those triangles the moment I started hearing traffic on I-45. And then the next day, my brother dropped me off at the same point, right on I-45, where the Lone Star Trail crosses it. I came around and went through Huntsville, and I didn't see any tracks. And then after I got out of earshot of the interstate, here they come again. And started seeing them again. So I started wondering, are we looking at two different populations, one east of I-45 and one west of I-45? Do they just hear that, they associate that sound with humans, and so they're just really different colonies within the forest? No, I think certainly they could get across I-45 if they wanted to, and I feel sure that they do. But one thing that I know is that they are from one end of the forest all the way to the other. They're from the Richards Wilderness section all the way over here, and on east. They're not confined to the forest, right? They don't recognize national forest boundaries. And what Bob Garrett says is that they're moving up from the woodlands. They've been farther south, but there's so much development and building in greater Houston that they're pushing them farther and farther into the national forest from other subdivisions to community neighborhoods that they've spotted in south. But so I think they could get across the interstate, but I think they avoid it. I did a little measurement. It's about 400 feet. On Google Maps, I looked at what would it take to get from one tree line across the access road, across the southbound lanes, the median and northbound lanes, the other access road, back into the tree line. It's about 400 feet. It's more than a football field, an open area. And there are underpasses, there are other ways to probably make it across. But my gut feeling is that they probably pick a side and stick to it. And that they're definitely, I've heard them west of I-45. I've heard them around Stubblefield Lake, and I probably have heard them. I've heard them in this area too myself. And I've probably got some audio of some tree knocks in the audio section. So again, they're not on one side or the other. And and so Russell's coming along.
This is the trailer for his book. Who did the narration?
I did. I did. It's a one-man show.
When we're young, our parents tell us monsters aren't real. I guess it all depends on your definition. But if a monster could be defined as something covered with hair that walks on 2 feet, is as tall as your bedroom ceiling, and can see at night, then I have bad news for you. Nothing sounds crazier to most people than the assertion that Sasquatches, Bigfoots, exist. But exist they do, and not just in a few remote pockets of the Pacific Northwest, but from Alaska to Florida. Though I had read about them for years, I wanted to see for myself. So I undertook a 100-mile solo expedition across one of America's hottest Bigfoot sighting areas, Sam Houston National Forest in East Texas. All along the way, I thought about the fundamental questions that surround this persistent mystery. What are these creatures? Why, after thousands of encounters with humans, do they still go unacknowledged by science, government, and mainstream society? And how will this strange chapter of our relationship with them end?
Here at the end, this is audio from the night right here. Those calls, yeah. Double.
Virginia.
That's 2 calls.
Thank you very much.